Chevanuruttamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tito Jayodyaret Nishtapreshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagata Sevya Bhagatiyatam Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Nigama Kaparur Garitam Palam Vidyamakara Mita Dravisamitam Pibata Bhagatam Rashamarayam Mahora Horisikabuvi Bokaham Krishna Sadam Pagate Damigana Karonasta Dishamasha Paranako Dunoditaham Tamapia Dabishuta Vishutam Vibu Samapyadana Birambariksaram Prakyahidahamaram Sanklesha Nirvana Musanti Nanyataham Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinu Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kantara Kantanamostate Jayatam Sarito Pango Mama Mandir Matergati Matsabasha Parambo Jodahara Ramadana Mohanam Sriman Rasaram Vamsi Beda Karsan Venish and Herbago Gopanata Sri Saram Divyad Brindaranya Kapadrumada Srimad Radnagara Shima Shanishto Sri Shirada Shila Govindado Prasadabi Hesevi Manashmarami Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmanya Taya Chajikari Taya Krishnaya Govinaya Namo Mangalang Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Guru Advita Mangalam Pandarika Kro Mangalaya Tanohi Om Narayanaya Vidmahi Vasadevaya Dimahi Tano Vishnu Prachodyatehe Om Mahadevi Chubidmahi Vishnu Padnyati Dimahi Tano Lakshmi Prachodyatehe Mahalakshmi Namastabhyam Namastabhyam Sare Sare Hari Pire Namastabhyam Namastabhyam Tapti Kanchana Gaunage Radha Vindavaneshwar Vishavanasute Devi Pranamani Hari Priya Om Agana Timanandasya Ganangana Saraka Chaksurun Mididam Yana Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Stapitam Yana Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Swaparandikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyataparakammanam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sta Sri Rupam Sagadam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sadevam Sadvaitam Sabarutam Paridina Sayitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shibhishakan Vitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Panaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamana Namaste Sarasati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvishesa Sanyavadi Praskata Desana Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. It's Wisdom Wednesday. We've resumed our little get-togethers on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday after somewhat of a hiatus. And I've been sharing with you yesterday and the day before the lyrics. A second song, seeing as how we're now on 112 episode of Gajendra Lila, we're churning this Lila, we're churning it up to see what all is produced. And so now the original song is insufficient as we've advanced further down the path, seeing more of the landscape and taking more of the scenery. We were inspired, the muse from within inspired us to add a second song to the first. And the first song is more narrative, more about the actual plot. What happened? This happened, and this happened, and so reacted to this, and this was the result of that. And this is a little bit more internal. It's a little bit more to do with the prayers. And I put it to music yesterday, so if you don't mind, I'll share it. Hold on a second. Let me.
Recall mantras from a past
I'll
life.
start it over again.
Away as attachments like.
Let's start over. Okay, here we go. Hopefully it comes through clear enough to my partner here, Rob.
Yo, Gajendra, Elephant King in danger's grip. His mind stripped of arrogance, his history unzipped. Recalled mantras from a past life. Cut away as attachments like a knife. Formerly King Indradumna, now in elephant form. Yet the prayers echoed, weathering the storms. Mantras resurfacing from the past. Transcendental sound awakening memories profound. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, he takes up the slack, carries what we lack. He'll get us back home, back to Godhead. Krishna is the cause and result, the witness supreme, transcendental to this dream, unseen behind the material screen, the life in the machine. May he give me protection, the Lord of all might, guiding me through darkness into the eternal light. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, he takes up the slack, carries what we lack. He'll get us back home, back to Godhead. He's the observer, the changeless preserver, above creation, aloof like the sun. Yet with his energies, he blesses everyone, simultaneously apart from this world in one. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, he takes up the slack, carries what we lack. He'll get us back home, back to Godhead. With multi potencies, he manifests his will, creating this universe, his purpose to fulfill. And when it's time to end, he absorbs it all back like a spider retracting the web into his sack. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, he takes up the slack, carries what we lack. He'll get us back home, back to Godhead. Chant Hare Krishna, the Maha Mantra's call. In this life or the next, it will never fail. Once the seed is sown, the Bhakta Kripa will grow. Sooner or later, you will go back home. Even if a devotee falls from the path, Krishna in the heart keeps track. At the right time, he takes up the slack, carries what we lack. He'll get us back home, back to Godhead. I say Hare, you say
Hare, Hare, Hare.
say
Krishna, you say Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. I say Hare, you say Hare, Hare, Hare. I say Hare, you say Rama, Hare, Hare. I say Rama, you say Rama, Rama, Rama. I say Hare, you say Hare, Hare, Hare. All together now. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. How did the sound come through on that, Rob? Are you there? Could you make out that adequately? Don't hear from Rob. All right. What was it say? Lacking the backing of the pachyderms, Gajendra was alone in the danger zone. I feel like Gajendra alone in the preaching zone. But that's what you got to expect. Kastuba was on there was a Zoom meeting, something to do with you know, I don't know, North America, a few weeks ago. And Kastuba, Wisdom of the Sages, was there. And as you may know, Kastuba and Raghunath have an immensely popular podcast. I think they even surpassed Joel Osteen in terms of popularity in the religious and spirituality category, excuse me. So one of the main points when he was asked what did he attribute his success, one of the main points was that they do it every day. They do it every day. Very rarely do they miss. And I thought, I can see that. I can see that if you can count on them being available every single day at a certain time, yeah, that would definitely promote popularity. Unfortunately, my responsibilities are too many, and I'm only one. With Raghunath and Kastuba, they have two. So if one should not be able to make it on any given day, the other one can at least continue and do it on their own. They also interview people once a week. I don't have a partner. I don't have a pard. And especially during the Color Festival season, I'm out of town quite a bit. Our own festivals demand a lot of attention, and you can't really keeping up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, providing that consistency. and at the same time being as conscientious as you can about doing color festivals um, can gravitate against each other. There are a lot of details in the color festivals, and if you don't jump through the hoops that the police and the health department and the fire department and the city and county and all provide for you, there will be a big downside to that. So during the festival season, we live in fear of the authorities that be, and that curtails our broadcast. And even at best, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I can't see a single person doing it 7 days a week. That would not be possible. That would preclude, that would necessitate a partner. Anyway, it is what it is. My own skills are getting sharpened the more I speak and share. So here we go. Today, our topic is time, the ever-flowing stream. Prabhupada talks about a species of bugs, fireflies. The word for bug is kita. Kita means very small, very insignificant, barely visible to the naked eye. And then another thing which is diminutive about kitas, certain types of insects, is many of them live only a few hours. Many of them are born, they come forth out of eggs or wherever they come from, in the legions, in the hundreds and thousands at twilight, at the end of the day, after the sun has gone down, a whole civilization of kitas, of insects, is born. And they fly, they congregate, they, in their own way, they form states, cities, and villages, nations, alliances, they write constitutions, they declare independence, they tax in their own way, diminished way. They probably have the same impulses and urges that we do. All this goes on beginning after the sun goes down. They live only a few hours, thousands and thousands live only, and they expire before the next day's sunrise. An entire civilization of kitas, insignificant insects, emerge, do whatever they do, and disappear between the setting of the sun one evening and the rising sun the next day. Their sun might be, if they're anywhere near human civilization, their sun might be a light bulb. The only thing they have that would in any way remotely approximate the sun is a light bulb. Now, in comparison to these insects who only live during one night, a dog, for instance, dogs live 12, 13 years. The dog sees many days and nights. He sees 360 days, 360 nights, times 10, 3,600, and add another 5 if he lives 15 years. So the dog sees 6,000 nights. The bugs see one night, and not even one day. But the dog sees 6,000 nights and days. That means the dog sees 12,000 times more than what the bug sees. So if the bug were to hear, if you were to tell the bug, the dog lives 12,000 times longer than you do, the bug wouldn't believe you. Or maybe for the bug, oh, the dog must be God. The dog must be God 12,000 times longer than I do. It's almost unimaginable. For the bug that lives one evening, the figure 12,000 it's the same as eternal. It will be conflagrated in the mind of the bug as eternal. The bug may take your figure 12,000 as just an allegory, meaning eternal. The bug can't imagine a lifespan 12,000 times longer than it is. Now, in comparison, some of you had a dog. I remember when we grew up in Pennsylvania, we had a cute black and white mongrel dog named Tippy. He was with us for a few years, and he got run over by a car. We had a very well-traveled country road right adjacent to our property. So most of our pets didn't live out their full lives. They got run over. We had, when I was small, in the dim recesses of my memory, when I was, less than 10 years old, I remember we had a cat named Michael and we had a dog named Tippy. Later on, we had a Dalmatian named Cleopatra, who fortunately she got hit by a car, but fortunately it didn't kill her. She was the only one that lived her whole lifespan of 13 or 14 years. And in a sense, she was lucky because when she got hit by the car, it paralyzed her front leg. And so she dragged that front leg. It became numb and dead. And so she dragged that front leg and moved around on three legs the rest of her life. So that kept her off of the road. She wasn't mobile enough to get run over again. Then my mother had another dog named Maggie. And I had a dog also named Henry Higgins. 5 or 6 dogs during the course of our life, isn't it? They live 12 to 13 years. So a human being will see 5 or 6 dogs come or go. In between the human being, llamas, let's take llamas. They occupy, as far as lifespan, a middle ground between human beings who can live 80 or 90 years and dogs who live 13 years. We've had llamas since the mid 80s here. Llamas, people ask, how long do llamas live? Well, they can pass away as early as 25 or they can live to be 30. So a llama sees 2 generations of dogs come by, isn't it? Now, Bob and I have been here since 1980, so that's 43 years. We've spent more than half of our lives here in Spanish Fork, Utah. And I can run through, I can tick like a Rolodex, the names of all the llamas that have come and gone since the 80s, last 40 years. Tika, Nordy was one of our stud, Ram 1, Ram 2, Wind Mirror was an incredible stud, Chandan. Um, Many generations. How many generations? I would say 4. In the last 40 years, we've seen 4 generations of llamas come and go. And as we look out in the pasture there, we'll see there are 3 generations. There's Bhumi, and then there's Rasa. They're quite elderly. They're in their mid-20s. And then their children, some of their children are now 5 or 6 years old. And then this spring, we had 5 other babies, and those babies are just literally weeks or months old. So we're seeing 3 generations of llamas, and we might even see one more generation of llamas before Bobby and I pass on. So humans who live 100 years see several generations of llamas in their lives, or cows. Cows live. Uh, they see even more generations of cows and dogs, who themselves live 12,000 times longer than the bugs that only last for one evening. Now, let's go to the next level, okay? Tortoises. I heard about one tortoise, people estimate he's 500 years old. He was around during the Civil War. Can you imagine? But tortoises routinely live for 200 to 300 years. The tortoises will see 3 generations of human beings. There's also a story, I think, in Jagannath Lila, where we have the Shnan, the bathing ceremony, come up next weekend. It'll be between 5 and 6 o'clock in Salt Lake City Temple. And in the Spanish Fork Temple, it'll be the following Sunday around 6 o'clock, just before RT. And then 2 weeks beyond that, we'll have the Rath Yatras, July 6th in Salt Lake City, July 7th in Spanish Fork. So we're thinking of Jagannath Lila, and you may know the story that King Indradumna built a Jagannath temple, and then he went to Brahmaloka to invite Lord Brahma to come to the Pratishthan to attend the installation of the deities. But the thing is, when after he'd gone to see Brahma for a moment, he came back, and the temple was no longer what he'd seen. There was his family members had died. No one even remembered his wife and children. He'd spent a moment at the abode of Lord Brahma. And when he returned to Earth, so many thousands of years had passed that no one even remembered his wife and children, or even himself, except for, I believe I have the story right, there was a crow. He went around and he asked, he said, what's going on? Everything's changed so thoroughly. What's going on? Well, I just left a moment ago. My wife is here, my children are here, my soldiers, my generals, the temple that I just built. What's going on? No one, they thought he was a madman. They had no frame of reference to help him out, except for one crow. And one crow said, yeah, I remember you. I remember you. And Indra said, thank God, I thought I was losing my mind. I thought I was losing my mind. The crow told him, gave him the history of what had happened during all the thousands of years during which he was spending a moment with Lord Brahma. The crows live a long time, apparently. I think in the Ramayana, there's also a story about a long-lived crow. Now, compared to tortoises, who may see several generations, or crows who may even live for a millennia, as described in some of the epics, consider the lifespan of the demigods. Their one day is our 6 months. One day of the demigods is equal to our 6 months. That's why Indra, after having only spent a few moments on the planet of Lord Brahma, when he came back, thousands of years had passed on the earthly planet. So if one crow sees many tortoises come and go, and one tortoise sees many human beings come and go, and human beings see many llamas come and go, and llamas see many dogs come and go, and dogs see 12,000 civilizations of bugs come and go. Just imagine what it's like to be a demigod. The longest, now demigods, the lifespan of the demigods is practically insignificant compared to the lifespan of Brahma. Brahma is the creator of the universe. Brahma lives, his lifespan is equivalent to the duration of this universe, and only at the expiration, only at the annihilation of this universe does Brahma pass away. So compared to the lifespans of the demigods, which seem incalculable, to tell a human being about the lifespan of a demigod, it boggles the mind. Human being would think, oh, he's eternal. Indra's eternal. Manu's eternal. Vayu's eternal. Kuvera's eternal. Thousands of times their lifespan compared to ours. And yet Brahma sees many, many generations of demigods. For instance, Brahma's one day is 4,300,000 years times 1,000. During Brahma's one day, which is 4,300,000 years times 1,000, there are 14 manus. There are 14 manus. So that means the lifespan of a manu is 14 times 4,300,000. All right, no, 71. Divide 1,000 by 14, and the lifespan of a manu is 71 times 4,300,000. Now, compared to our lifespan, which is only 100 years, 71 times 4,300,000 is a lot. It's like, you think, wow, if I could live that long, I could really sow my oats. I could really party. And yet, compared to Lord Brahma sees many, many generations. Just stay with me, and we're almost done here. The demigod like Manu or Indra live for 71 times 4,300,000. I don't know what that is. And there are 14 of those in one day of Brahma. One day of Brahma is 4,300,000 times 1,000. And then one night of Brahma is that figure times 2. A week is that figure times 7. A month is that figure times 4. A year is that figure times 12, and Lord Brahma lives for 100 years. So it comes to about 311 trillion years. So here you have it. Brahma, demigods, crows, tortoises, human beings, llamas, cows, dogs, peacocks, and then insects. Compared to the you have the insect on one extreme, you have Brahma on the other extreme. The insect's mind would be boggled just telling about the lifespan of the dog. Can you imagine if you started to tell the insect about the lifespan of Lord Brahma? He would start glazing over. He would get the 1,000-yard stare. He would disconnect. He would be thinking, when's lunch? When is lunch coming? It's totally above and beyond anything that the insect could see. And yet, Krishna, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Karana, sees the lifespans of millions of Brahmas coming and going, being created, lasting for 311 trillion years, not even Krishna, even an expansion of Krishna, Mahavishnu, lies down in the spiritual world, and from his pores come millions of universes and millions of Brahmas. They're manifested and then they're retracted within him. Then he himself is retracted within another Narayan, and then after 311 trillions, he's manifest again, and then these universes are coming. Bhutva Praliyate. From the pores and from the breathing of Mahavishnu, millions of universes come. So the entire lifespan of Lord Brahma, which is equivalent to the duration of 311 trillion years, is an exhalation, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. The exhalation of a portion of Govinda, Mahavishnu, equals 311 trillion years, during which there are generations and generations of Brahmas, generations and generations of demigods, generations of crows, generations of tortoises, generations of human beings, generation of birds, generation of llamas, generation of dogs and cats and cows, and generations and generations of insects. Krishna not only is the witness to all of this, not only does he see all this coming and going, but the entire material creation, he sees it during the period of its manifestation, and he's also a witness during the period of its non-manifestation. During the period of its non-manifestation, there's nothing to see. There's nothing material to see because everything's been retracted. But that doesn't mean there's nothing existing. There is the superior, eternal, spiritual world, which exists when this material world is coming and going. When this material world is unmanifested, the spiritual world is unaffected. It is as it was before. Chintamani pakara sadmashu kalpabriksha lakshabritushu surabhiya abhipalyanti lakshmi saha sadbrahma sevimanam govinda mariparisham. Irrespective and unaffected by the comings and goings of these material women and men and peacocks and cows and dogs and cats and demigods, irrespective of millions and millions of Vishnus and Shivas and Brahmas, irrespective of all of that, there is, apart from and unaffected by that coming and going of this material world, this spiritual world, of which the transcendental autocrat is Krishna existing on the highest planet in the spiritual world, which resembles the whirl of a lotus flower. Before the creation of this material world, during the creation, and after the creation, Krishna is there. He is there. He is the absolute truth. He is the basis. He is the foundation for this material. There nothing exists save and except in its expansion of Krishna's energy. He is there. He is present, manifest, conscious playing his flute throughout the entire cycle of many, many, many Brahma's lifetime. From the point of view of Vishnu, there's so many Brahmas come and go. Mahavishnu, he manifests universes with his exhalation. He inhales millions of universes, millions of Brahmas are destroyed. Then he exhales again, and millions of Brahmas and millions of Shivas are all manifested. Then he inhales again. And all of this is happening during one breath of Lord Vishnu. And Vishnu himself comes and goes. He's periodically there when the material worlds are to be generated, and then he's not there when they're not. Sometimes Vishnu and the worlds which he generated compared to a mobile fair, a mobile marketplace. In the medieval ages, they didn't have so much brick and mortar. It was more like a fair. The fair, the tents, the merchants, the merchandise would roll into an area, and they would set up a bazaar, they would set up a marketplace once a week. Maybe Saturday would be market day, or Sunday or Friday or Thursday. Or if it was a more remote area, they'd come maybe once a month. So you'd have Walmart once a month under tents. Or if it was a really remote area, they'd come once a year. So the bazaar, the fair, the trading center, flea market, if you would come only for a certain limited period of time, and then it would move on. Vishnu, from whose breathing comes and goes millions and millions of universes, also comes and goes. Vishnu himself is coming and going. Bhutva, Bhutva, Praliyate. Only Krishna does not come and go. It is only Krishna upon whom there's no past, present, and future. It is only Krishna upon whom time has no effect. Time does not act on Krishna. There is a time even for Vishnu to lie down and to exhale and to inhale. And of course, it goes without saying, there's a time for Brahma, there's a time for the demigods, there's a time for the human beings, there's a time for the tortoises, there's a time for the crows, there's a time for the peacocks, for the cows, the dogs, and the cats, and there's a time for the insects, but there's no time for Krishna. We divide time into three phases: past, present, and future. I had this in the past, I have this now, and I shall have more in the future. We calculate time based on what little we had in the past and what we hope to accumulate, how we hope to increase our abundance in the future. And all that is based on the misconception that we're going to be able to stay here. We think of time in three phases: past, present, and future. We miss the miracles that are happening all around us in the present because we're too busy with our tongue out, drooling and meditating and planning and conniving on what it is we're going to have in the future and how much more comfortable we're going to be when our plans work out. And we actually miss the present. And we look upon the past as something deprived, something diminished, because the future is always going to be better. The future is always going to be better. But when you think about what the future holds, the fact is it holds disease, old age, and death. And then rebirth, you have to start all over again. So in all of that, in all of human activity, in all the feverish planning that we engage in individually, collectively, as individuals, as municipalities, as counties, as regions, as states, as nations, as planets. In all of that, time has the last laugh because everything in the end will be taken away. You don't have a future in this material world in the sense that future will be better than the past. The future will resemble the past. That just as you had very little in the past, if you go far enough into the future, everything will be taken away once again, and your assets will be reduced to zero at the time of death, if not sooner. I've told you this about my mother in the past. Um, my parents were fortunate enough to inherit from uh, my grandparents on my father's side a beautiful um, home in small town, Pennsylvania, Stallstown, about 50 miles from Pittsburgh, right 4 miles off the Donegal Pennsylvania Turnpike, the Donegal exit. Again, that well-traveled road that took away the lives of all their pets is called 7-Eleven between Donegal and Ligonier. So it had a nice plot with big, huge antique pine trees and a house that had been built during the Revolutionary War. It dated back to the 1770s. It was once an inn for travelers to stay in. Beautiful, big, the stone. It was built out of big stone blocks, 18 to 24 inches thick. The windows were, the windows in these old houses, the windows are, recessed the width of the block, and then you have a seat, so you can sit in the windows. And fireplace, there were three downstairs room and a fireplace in each room. And I remember the kitchen had this kind of an iron thing which was embedded in the mortar, and it had a hook on it, so it would swing out. And the idea is you'd hang your pot on it, and then you'd swing it back into the fire, and that way you'd cook your stew or whatever it was. Many a cold winter's day with several feet of snow outside, we would sit in the kitchen in front of that fireplace, feeling all warm and toasty. In any case, it was a couple acres of property, beautifully landscaped, a beautiful house. People would knock on the door and they'd say, I'm sorry to bother you, but this house, we were driving by and we just wondered, is there any way there'd be people inviting themselves into the house? I remember we had a Dutch door into the living room. We had a Dutch door. So on a summer's day, I'd be sitting in the living room reading, passing the time. And I'd look up and the Dutch door would be open because the weather was so pleasant. And I on many occasions I'd see the upper body, from the solar plexus up, some total strangers, they just, I'm so sorry, but we love this house, would you mind if we come in? So sure. Oh, we were used to receiving a lot of visitors. Hospitality was our motto in those days. And I think as a side issue, I think also growing up in that environment when people would just show up and we would invite them in and show them around. I think um, that kind of intimated what my future life would be. We have a beautiful edifice here in Spanish Fork. People love it. Tourists come. We invite them. We advertise it. It's not that they come uninvited. We're prepared. But in a sense, what we were doing in that house in Pennsylvania is what we're doing here in Utah. Is we're receiving visitors and tourists with as much of a welcoming attitude and which as much graciousness as we can possibly handle. And right now, we're very fortunate. We've got some wonderfully uh, friendly. We've got Max, we've got Tara, we've got Sean, we've got Radha Karman, we've got Namarita. It's what, 5 people. And when people pop in, they peer through the front door. There are 5 very, very gracious devotees to take care of them. Namarita's from Nepal, so he takes care of the Nepalis. Radhika Jivan's Indian from South Africa, so he takes care of the Indians. He's very, very sweet. And then Tara and Max are very good with the Indians, but of course, the Westerners, they relate to the Westerners. So my main priority here in Utah has always been guest reception and hospitality. And I'm so satisfied right now that to know that every person who walks through the doors is welcome and made to feel at home. And that's what we did all those years ago in Pennsylvania. Anyway, you're probably wondering where all this wandering leads to. You guys don't mind my wandering, do you? Because I'm 77, so it's my prerogative to wander. Anyway, we kind of lost most of our audience during the Color Festival season, so it's just a few of us, Britta and Rob and I, so I don't really care. Namarita's on board, Bhai Bobby's on board, Priya Krishna, Pragya and Yogesh from Dallas. We picked up a few people. We had nobody in the beginning. Anyway, to finish up here, you're probably rolling your eyes and thinking, true, get to the point. Okay. We had this beautiful house with landscape, and my parents, because of this house, my father didn't have that high paying a job. He didn't have that much of what you call an aristocratic position in society, but we lived in Ligonier Valley, which is where the Carnegies and the Mellons and all these super, super rich people lived. And my parents were able, on the strength of the property that we inherited, to make a lot of friends among some very, very wealthy people. My brother and I went to private schools. The church we went to, St. Michael's in Rector, was frequented by multimillionaires. So my parents were able to enter into the gentry, you might say, or the upper middle class or lower high class, based on that property that we had inhabited, which was very interesting, had a lot of history to it, and which was well situated in Ligonier Valley, where lots and lots of millionaires. It's like a place where many of the rich people from Pittsburgh would have their second home. Any case, okay, finishing up here. My dad died. My mom had a fall, broke her hip, and went into a nursing home in Ligonier. Once she went into that nursing home, uh, she never went back. I think one time I came and visited, and we drove past the old house, but by that time it had been sold to pay for her care. And so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, from the time that she fell and broke her hip and went into the nursing home, she was never able to visit that home again. My father also, a few years earlier, he'd had Parkinson's, and he was falling. He was falling all over the place, having these falls. Sometimes he would crack a rib, couldn't keep his balance, and mom couldn't um, couldn't take care of him. And so my father was super attached to that house, super attached. In fact, when we'd inherited, it was in need a lot of renovation. So as a small kid, I remember my father wearing khaki pants with his shirt out, sanding and polishing, and he completely renovated that house. He exposed the beams and polished them, and he exposed the floor, and he actually discovered the walled-in fireplace in the kitchen I was just talking about. My father, had come down to him. It had been in his family. So dad was particularly attached to that house. He loved that house. And yet, once he got Parkinson and my mother could no longer, she sent him away. And every time she would visit him, and she would visit him every day, he would say, Julie, when can I go home? Julie, when can I go home? Julie, when can I go home? And he never went home. And she never went home. One day she called me after she'd been in the nursing home for a couple of years, and she wailed. I answered the phone. Hello. Oh, Chris. Oh, Chris. I said, what's wrong, Mom? I've been reviewing my life. She says, I spent the first 60 years of my life accumulating wealth and savings and retirement funds and home and property, children. And within the last 2 years of my life, I've lost it all. I've lost it all. Okay. Newsflash. Newsflash. You are going to lose everything. In spite of all your planning to wane, to prosper, to enjoy increased abundance and more influence and more fame. Just look at these politicians. They're in their 80s, and yet they cannot pass the baton to a younger generation. They want to, even in their 80s, they're planning, in the future, I'll do this and this and that. And our message is you have no future in this material world. All it is just the same thing. Chewing the chewed. It's cyclical. You reset, you lose everything and you reset. You take another birth, you go into another womb. So Gajendra has now come to he's now come to consciousness. He's now been shown the shroud of this material energy for what it is, a decoration for a dead body. And he says, Naham Jijishri Hama Shakim, Lord, even if you do rescue me from the jaws of the crocodile, I don't want to continue living in this elephant's body because it will just lead to another birth and another birth and another birth. I want to give up this body and I don't want to take another birth. Lord, I want to go in my original spiritual body back to you. And I know, Lord, that in order to do this, I have to not just physically recite prayers to you and not just physically look up to you and not just physically offer the lotus flower to you and call out to you, but I have to do this with internal purity. You know, anyone can go through the motions. Anyone can pay lip service. Anyone can attend church in order to get the notoriety or to be seen by others. God, speaking of that, St. Michael's, every Sunday when we went to St. Michael's, it was a fashion show. Oh my God, the people that came, how they dressed, their wealth, and then to see and to be seen, and after the service to stand on the porch and talk to each other and catch up and compare. My son's in Lawrenceville, my son's in Andover. My father, he loved my son's in Lawrenceville, which at the time was the most expensive prep school in the country. He had a bumper sticker on the back of the car. My son goes to Lawrenceville. And my father would tell me, we were driving down the freeway and people honked and they waved because they saw that sticker. And it's all illusion. It's all a waste of time. You're going to lose everything that you've worked, all the prestige, all the influence, the social status. It's all a joke. The only thing that has value, the only thing that has permanency is the longing of the soul to serve the Supreme Lord and to reconnect with him. And you can't fool the Lord. You have to be pure outside as well as inside, pure inside as well as out. You have to be transparent. Unfortunately, Gajendra was brought to that brink of helplessness after contending with the crocodile for 1,000 years. He realized he wasn't going to win the fight. He was marked for death. He was marked for defeat. Everything that he'd accumulated, the wives, the prestige, the residence in the heavenly planets, being on a first name basis with Indravarna, it was all finished within a moment by the grace of the Lord. And Gajendra realigned his priorities. He recalled his devotional service of a previous life. And he said, Lord, I know that if you decide to help me out, it's only out of your causeless mercy. So I open up my heart. I invite you to examine my heart as you have no self-interest, as you do what you do, not being impelled by past, present, and future, by friends, enemies, and neutral parties. Lord, examine me, x-ray my heart. And if I'm internally pure as well as externally engaged in your devotional service, please save me from this dangerous ocean of repeated birth and death in this material world. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you. We picked up a few extra listeners from the beginning. My Bobby. Oh yeah, my Bobby. That's funny. On top of everything else, my mother said, I lost my house, I lost my husband, I lost my wealth, and my son became a Hare Krishna. And I don't know which one irked her the most. It might have been the last one, I know. My mother always said, if you inherit anything from me, don't give it to Krishna. Spend it on yourself. And that was a mother's concern. She didn't want to think of me as, suffering in my health or nutrition. She didn't want. She wanted me to take care of myself. And every mother wants that. But of course, and when she passed away, I assumed that all of her savings had been spent on the care. Can imagine how surprised I was when the lawyer, an old friend of mine, childhood friends of mine, we used to play together, George Welby, called up and said, your mother has there's $220,000 there. My brother had passed away. So I took it and I spent it on Krishna because I knew that would do her soul the best good. Having her inheritance spent on Krishna is like the best thing I could do. That was, as a son, to spend the inheritance of your mother on Krishna consciousness is going to do good to her soul. Do good to her soul. And as far as my own needs are concerned, Krishna's always taken care of me. I've never had any material concerns since joining Krishna consciousness 54 years ago. Mark my words, Krishna, if you take care of the big thing, which is to serve Krishna and worship Krishna, reconnect with Krishna, you're not going to sweat the little things. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and everything else will be taken care of. I can tell you, it works. So thank you, Vaibhavi, as always, for joining and also reminding me of that little quirk of fate. My son became a Hare Krishna. Britta says, yes, our politicians can't let go. It's retarding our culture. Not that culture is even sustainable. Very deep truths in those two sentences. How much damage, how much harm, how much slaughter, how many people have been imprisoned and killed, shot and executed just because of one 80-year-old politician wants to hold on to his position for another few weeks. The paranoia, the fear. God, what a version of hell. I can understand a politician that thinks he's doing good and he thinks that only he can do good and the competition will ruin everything. I think pretty much that's the way Biden is thinking now. So there is that. There is that. It's not always just a naked lust for power. On the other hand, his opponent is, gosh, if he doesn't get elected, he's going to go to jail and become bankrupt. So for him, it's almost a matter of life or death. Even though he's old, he's still fighting for himself, not for others. Anyway, not going to go there. Let that not be in the record. Strike that. Britta says, we love your wandering. Thank you. Thank you for indulging an old man who may be losing it. I don't know. Chad, Dutch, Hare Krishna, thanks for joining us. Oh, gosh. Priya Krishna from New York, thanks for reconnecting. Sorry we were unavailable for a while, but we're back in the swing of things for the time being. That's been it for Wednesday. We'll be back with you on the weekend. And on the weekend, we have a lot of Jagannath bathing to do, both in Salt Lake and Spanish Fork. If you're local, please attend. Otherwise, they'll probably be broadcast on Facebook Live. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare.